Hey guys, this is Gabe Dimmick from the Baseball Rebellion, and for today's swing breakdown, I'm going to take a look at Javier Baez, middle infielder for the Cubs. We've actually done a few breakdowns on him before, but he made a little swing change, a little adjustment that I wanted to point out that I think is valuable to see and valuable to see a change that he made. And Baez is a guy who is known for being the most aggressive, taking the biggest hack there is, and we love that. We like his aggressiveness. That's something that I think is a positive trait for Baez. But and it worked really well at a lot of levels. I think he struggled a little bit in the major leagues against the best pitchers. It's hard to get back behind the ball with some of the movements he was doing, and so he made a few changes when he needs to, and so now he just has to figure out what he has to do to hit the ball over the fence consistently. He doesn't have to hit it 100 feet over the fence, if that makes sense. So from a pure force power standpoint, what he was doing before probably would give him a bigger maximum power number, but what he's doing now and some of these adjustments are going to help him be more consistent, but he's still going to have enough power, more power than most guys, based on some of his movements that he's maintained being aggressive, but he's changed a little bit in his stride and things like that. So let's take a look. So before I call this no stride, because it's not no stride, he does move his front foot, but it's more of just a kind of an up and down. He's limited his forward movement a little bit. So you're going to see Baez here from the side. He's going to kind of rock back. You're going to see him kind of load up into this back hip. You can see his butt kind of go back toward the third base dugout here. So you're going to see that hip kind of counter rotate back, load into his hip. All right. So now what you're going to see is his foot is actually going to pick up a little bit. He's going to get even further into that hip. And as he comes down with that foot, he's going to have a really important transition phase. So watch, this is where he kind of starts to unload that back hip. So he loads into it. Watch how he comes out of it. So watch that really key in on this back hip area right here. So as he goes up onto his toe, he's starting to load it up. He picks it up, he goes a little further, and then he unloads that back hip. So that's where a lot of his power is coming from, is this move right here with that back hip. Now, if we watch his upper half, this is a really important transition phase. So he still gets in there almost more than anybody with his tip, okay? And he's very downhill with his shoulders. But watch by the time or as he's opening that hip, he's going to really transition back behind the ball. So when his heel is in the ground, his shoulders are more flat, his barrel's in a good position, and his head is actually over his back hip. Okay, so here, his head's more over his front hip, but that transitions as that back hip opens. Okay, so as that happens, his head goes more toward his back hip, and that's a really important move to get behind the ball more. So Baez used to have a crazy, very aggressive forward move, giant leg kick, much bigger movement with his body forward. And while that may have produced more force, it just wasn't very consistent for him, or at least not consistent enough for him. And so he's kind of toned it down when he needs to. And you're going to see a lot of the same really great movements occurring. They just happen at a little bit of a different time, and the stride is maybe minimized a little bit to make it easier to get the head over the back hip and to get his barrel started on playing with the pitch behind the ball deeper. And when that heel's in the ground again, just getting in the way of the ball earlier is a big key for Baez here. So watch how he sets it all up. So awesome separation here. Belly button's very open. Shoulders are still closed. Barrel's in a great spot. And now he's really going to keep his head still. So JK just did an article on effortless power. And so while Baez may look like he swings with a lot of effort, which he does, he's creating more effortless power because he's getting in this really good spot where his head over his back hip. He's really going to keep his head still. So this is where the kind of smoothness comes into the swing, where the head stays still, and he's very violent with his hips and with his shoulders and turning the barrel fast behind him, but the head staying still through this phase, through the swing phase, the turn phase, is very, very important. All right, so again, head getting over the back hip, really accelerating the barrel deep. Awesome lean back here in his spine. Back foot's obviously coming off the ground and forward. Front legs locking back into his body. Very, very good getting uphill through it. So you can see that barrel path getting in the zone much deeper than it used to for Baez. And a lot of that is just because I like what he's done with his stride. He's minimized the kind of crazy forward move. He's still tipping aggressively and getting some acceleration into his bat. So he has a big window to accelerate his barrel now. Okay, and he's just figuring out how to maximize his body to not only just hit the ball really hard and far, but also to be consistent. Okay, so he is striding, but it's just a shorter stride than he used to have, so it's a little bit of a swing change. I'll post a link in the article below. If you go to our site baseballrebellion.com, if you're watching on YouTube, I'll post in the article that I'm putting out some of the old swing breakdowns where you can see Baez and where he was with his big leg kick and moving forward more, and sometimes he'll still do that. But I like to see his ability to shorten up the stride a little bit, but still produce some really good movements where he can absolutely smash the ball. So that's kind of from the side view, turning all the way, obviously. Let's go to the front really quick. So you're going to see him here, and again, on a first glance, it kind of looks no stride, like he just kind of goes onto his toe and then goes right back down. But he actually does pick that foot up, like I said. So you're going to see his timing here with Cueto pitching. So Baez is just going to start later because he's doing a little bit less with his body. Okay, so you're going to see him go up onto that toe. He's reading the pitch, ball's out of the hand, and he's kind of reading it here. And obviously, you're still seeing, like I said, this tip. Okay, so he's reading the pitch, tipping way in. You still see a lot of his back, but really watch his back hip, how it kind of turns back. You can see that that back hip turn back, kind of load up back here into this hip, and then as he comes out of it, he does a really nice job of unloading that hip and showing the pitcher his belt buckle. So watch how the belt buckle really turns toward the pitcher, okay? And as that's happening, watch the back shoulder. So the back shoulder really side bends down, okay? So he gets great separation here. So some guys who show this amount of back, like Baez does, they'll spin out immediately. So this front shoulder will go out, and they'll get too spinny sideways. But what's interesting here is Baez's first move with his upper body is more down here with his back shoulder, and it's not very spinny. And so that's what allows him not to pull off the ball and to get his hips ahead of those shoulders. So he's delaying his upper body. He's getting it to work aggressively, picking up barrel speed, but the speed is more back toward the backstop instead of sideways already where he would fly off the ball. So he creates excellent barrel acceleration, excellent speed, but again, his direction is better than it used to be because he's putting himself in better positions to get behind the ball earlier by right here being over his back hip, just like you saw in the side view over here. So very similar positions right here. Head over the back hip. Let's see when he lands here. Right about there, okay. Head over the back hip, right, and release that barrel, accelerate behind the ball, and come up through it. So here it is, full speed from the front. Play at full speed, both views. Just watch the speed. So yes, he's minimized his stride, but he's still maximizing his turn and still using the right body sequence to crush the ball. So here it is from the side now. So tipping in and going. Let's watch that one more time. Again, very violent, but much better direction, more up behind the ball earlier. If you look at the metrics on this, if you guys were watching this game, you can see that it kind of landed in the basket up here. And so if you watch Baez's reaction, he definitely didn't think that it had any chance of staying in the park. He thought it was way out of there, and the metrics kind of show us why. Because he hit it 107, he hit it at 36 degrees, and based on the hit tracks that we use here, that's usually way out of there. Part of the reason that it only went 381 or only went in that basket right there and barely got out is the wind was blowing in, and that definitely plays a factor. So I'm glad that didn't hit the top of the wall, and Baez didn't get embarrassed there. But man, he absolutely crushed this ball. And again, it was great to see him making some adjustments to big league pitching while still maintaining the speed and the energy and the force generation. He's just improving his direction, and he's finding out how to be successful at the highest level, which doesn't always mean producing the, trying to hit every ball 500 feet, because he only has to hit it 400 feet as often as he can. So this is really important to see, and I think it's an example of, if you're a hitter who wants to hit with a little shorter stride, how you can still be aggressive. So that's today's swing breakdown. I encourage you to read below the video. I'm going to write a little write-up. I'm also, like I said earlier, going to put some links in of some of our previous breakdowns of Baez, so you can kind of compare what he did here in this video and maybe what he did as a rookie or in the minor leagues. Thanks for watching.